Well, hello and welcome to the first episode of the drive to Dayton for the OHSAA Boys State Basketball Tournament, which will be once again held at the University of Dayton's UD Arena. This is the part of the season where things starting to heat up. We are in the 2023 portion of the schedule, which means Kurt Stubbs starts to come out of hibernation, and he is done mourning the end of the Pick Central football season. So I think it's time to get the show going. We've got Mike Roth with us, and we also have Mr. TJ Peatross with us. Now, TJ, I know you've been around to several games this year, but yesterday you had a great experience for the first time.
Yeah, so I was able to soak in the Indiana-Michigan State game over at Assembly Hall. And yeah, that was my first time being there, and it was nothing short of an electric environment. It was unbelievable. And for those of you who haven't been to Assembly Hall, the one thing that kind of stood out to me is the fact that most arenas kind of go out and up, whereas Assembly Hall almost goes like straight up. So it literally feels like the crowd is like right over top of the game. Yeah, and their students were incredible. Yeah, it was a big time game.
Yeah, one thing I've always said about IU basketball, it stinks because they treat basketball in that state like we treat football, and it's hard to swallow when like Ohio State, who just casually watches basketball until spring football starts, and then they beat Indiana in the I mean, for the better part of 2 or 3 decades now, Indiana hasn't been outside of a few years there with Crean and then back with Sampson, and they just haven't returned to what they should be with a fan base like that. So I guess the best way I could put it is they treat basketball the same way Ohio State people treat the football team. So Mike seems like he's got things going. I think they're starting to get healthy, and to me, they're really a team. I mean, when you got a college superstar, guy that's been around for like 55 years, and Trace Jackson Davis, and if they're starting to get healthy, and Hood Shafino's playing really well, getting better as a freshman, I think they're going to be a team to reckon with come March.
Yeah, I would agree. Trace Jackson Davis was an absolute monster yesterday. I think he finished with 31 and 15. Yeah, they got off to a slow start, but they ended up winning by double digits. Yeah, it was my first time making the trip. It's actually my first Big Ten game in person, believe it or not. So that was a heck of a way to start it off for me.
Well, TJ, while you were in Bloomington, Mike Roth was in a place maybe as electric. He was he was in at Brush High School yesterday. I'm pretty sure for the Chet Mason Invitational. I saw Mike briefly on Saturday in Columbus. So another busy weekend for you, Mike.
Yeah, another weekend. Only did the first 4 games at the Chet Mason Invitational, but got to see ISA was the most important team for me to see that day. But also, I got to see the alma mater, the Fairview Warriors, for the first time since 2020. So that was a nice little treat to just see how the program was doing. Because, yeah, since COVID started, haven't been able to go to a game. So got to see them. And they gave Medina a good game, only down, I think, 1 point at halftime against Medina. Scored the ball pretty well. Just third game in 3 days for a Division III public school. Didn't end up going our way. But, yeah, lots to be happy about as a Fairview alum.
Did you have any stroke in getting those guys in that event, or was it
I
just
said the same thing.
So not really. Fairview needed a game late in the year, and they got hit up by a couple different programs. And I suggested Medina over some of the other programs that asked them to play because I thought it'd be a more competitive game, and still a game against an elite opponent. And that game happened to be at the Chet Mason Invitational. So no like direct ties, but I did encourage them to go play Medina. Just happened to be at that event.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point of the year now where, like, you know, a lot of we've had a ton of these either like 3-4 day events like we did over Martin Luther King weekend, and then you got a lot of 1 day multiple games. We're getting to the point of the season where it's you know, getting down to the very end, and all these games moving forward are really significant for those teams that are going to make a run in the tournament, because all three of us know that if you're going to make a run in March, this is the time when these teams start, you know, peaking and hitting their stride and getting on those runs, and you're like, wow, man, this isn't even the same team that we saw in November or December. They look completely different. Mike and TJ have seen a ton of games. I don't know if you guys know exactly how many games you've seen this year, but I'm sure it's been a significant amount for both of you.
Yeah, I would have to probably go through my calendar, but if I had to put just a rough guesstimate on it, I would say I've seen probably close to 60 or so, 50 to 60 or so games, somewhere in that ballpark.
I think you're low because I'm at 109, so I'd assume you're probably at around 80, 85.
Yeah, I probably have. Yeah, those the multi-game showcase events certainly help in that regard. And they're perfect for me. So my strategy has always been to cover Northeast Ohio during the week, and then use the weekends to hit the road, whether it be Columbus, Northwest Ohio, or Cincinnati or Dayton.
So the two guys that are going to carry this show have, and it's not like these guys that I brought on here see the same teams over and over and over again. They're seeing a multitude of teams, a multitude of players. So I feel like you guys have as good a viewpoint as anybody when it comes to, just seeing the entire state. And what is out there, and what this tournament picture is eventually going to look like. What I want to start with is, and it doesn't have to be a single team or anything like that, but is there anybody? I'll start with you, TJ. Any team, either this week or recently, that is really standing out to you?
Off the top of my head, I think I would have to give a shout out to Coach Flannery and the St. Edward Eagles. I believe they had 4 games last week, starting with Spire. And then they played, I want to say, Cleveland Central Catholic, Bill Angela St. Joe's, and then they just beat Garfield Heights yesterday in an overtime win. Mike, I'm pretty sure you saw that game, right?
Yep, I was there.
Yeah, so I mean they're currently undefeated, and I think since I've been around, this is one of Coach Flan's best coaching jobs. It's coming into the year, I think we all knew that there would be a ton of parity, and I think in years when no one is great, I think coaching and culture make the difference. And what I've watched them do, considering their roster, they do have some talent. But compared to years past, it's just a different looking St. Edward's team. But the one thing that hasn't changed is just how they play. I mean, the phenomenal passing team. Guys are going to back cut you, flash cut you, move the ball, make shots. They have versatile forwards that can step out and shoot it. Comfortable playing on the perimeter. You got guys like Cameron Grant, Wendell Henry, Danny Lavelle. But I think the guy who's been the catalyst for them thus far, and I hope I'm not butchering his last name. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it. But his name is Lucas Perusic. He's like a 6', 6'1" guard. Played football up until this past season. but he is a dynamic athlete at the point guard position, likes to, drive and set the table for his teammates, and he is an absolute competitor, and I think one of the more underrated players in Northeast Ohio right now.
So St. Ed's, that TJ mentioned, currently number 1 in the state in the latest AP poll, also number 1 in the current Martin RPI ratings. How about you, Mike? Anybody standing out to you lately?
Yeah, so TJ went to D1, so I think it's only an obligation for me to go small school. I got 2 teams right now. First one, we're going to shout out Martin's Ferry. They're sitting at 14-0 in Division III, and they put up a decent amount of points, 71 against St. Clairsville, 73 against Cambridge, 82 against Bel Air. They're playing some really good basketball, a team I definitely hope to see potentially at the combo, sitting at 14-0 right now. And then the other team I'm going to shout out is Miami East. They're led by a junior duo of Jacob Roth and Wes Enos. They're sitting at 15-1. Their only loss was against Westerville North by 3 points in overtime. I haven't gotten a chance to see them in person yet this year, but I know TJ recently saw them. They're playing some great basketball and definitely one of the top teams in Division III.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly shout out a couple of teams that you guys covered, 1, 3, and 4. To me, a team that is really, really good is Bishop Reedy. Just solid in almost all aspects of the game. Extremely well coached basketball team with a guy, Tony Basutti, that is won everywhere he's been. He's won. He won big at Dublin Scioto. And he's got Reedy currently undefeated. This is a team that is a real threat in Division II. And then another team that I wanted to mention is Defiance. They're kind of flying under the radar a little bit in the Western Buckeye League. I know that a lot of times that league, the talk is usually Ottawa Glandorf, and rightfully so. But Defiance is having a heck of a season this year. Currently, I want to say they're about 14-1 on the season. So those 2 teams in Division II, and there's obviously some great teams in Division II, but those teams have been standing out to me lately.
And I think Bishop Reedy is a great call, and it's almost hard to say they were a victim of competitive balance, right? Moving up from Division III to Division II. But when you look at things in Central Ohio, if I'm a good team in Central Ohio, I would much rather play Division II than Division III. So I think that's going to bode well for them, come February, March. And like you said, Coach Basutti runs, phenomenal, offense. They play great basketball. They're led by a trio of seniors that I really like. You got Luke Ruth, Caleb Schaefer, Charlie Russell, guys that just flat out compete and make shots, play together. And you can just tell by watching that team play the chemistry that they have and that they've been together for a while.
Yeah, they play like a team that was beat in the final minutes of a game last year in the tournament, which they were.
I believe they were up 10 at halftime last year against Afrocentric, and then I think Dalen Swain just kind of flipped that switch like he normally does. But yeah, they were right there, and they were honestly, I thought they were the team that was going to make it out of Central Ohio last year.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with them moving up to Division II. A lot of times that's for a D3 team, sometimes that's a death sentence when you get moved up to D2 or D2 to D1. But in this case, it's a rarity where it looks like it's going to work out in their favor. Mike, I'll give you the first shot at this one. Is there one player right now that's popping to you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a sophomore, actually, and I'm going to say Derek Barber for Richmond Heights. He's been one of the best players. Oops, sorry. Here, TJ, you go real quick before my roommates go.
Yeah, so I would say I'm probably the biggest supporter of the Derek Barber fan club. Definitely one of the better sophomores in the state of Ohio. And if you watch this Richmond Heights team play so far this season, I just think the way that they play, like the brand of basketball, is much different. Whereas I thought in the years past they were getting by off of size, talent, and athleticism, but this Richmond Heights team can flat out shoot it. They play with a competitive spirit. They got versatile guys that can do different things. The additions of Jeremy Wilson and Jose Steele made a big difference. But I would say a kid that's kind of stuck out to me, who's been on the radar since he was a freshman, but I think has really kind of turned things up a notch heading into his senior year, would be Coy Thurman over at Akron Bookville. I think they played an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. They played one of the top teams out of St. Louis. They went out west and played in the Tarkanian Classic, I believe. They just played, I believe, yesterday or Saturday against Ferndale out of Michigan, who's one of the top teams in that area. And yeah, Coy's just been phenomenal. I think he's made some strides in terms of how well he's shooting the basketball. And when you let him get left, it is bad news bears. I mean, he uses his strong frame. He finishes at the rim off 2 feet, gets a lot of paint touches, makes really good decisions off the bounce. So he's a kid that I think can be the difference in a wide open Division II as far as Northeast Ohio goes. You're looking at like a Lutheran West, Akron Bookville, Akron East has made a lot of noise. I think they're a team who coming into the year didn't get a lot of credit, but I think Coach Chad Hazard has done a phenomenal job over there as well. But I think, when it comes to March, guards win games. And I think Coy Thurman is a guy that can win some games.
Yeah, Akron East actually beat Bookville on Sunday, 68-65.
Yeah, that was a game that, unfortunately, there was an altercation in the stands that kind of delayed that game. So I believe they stopped it with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
So we had a little technical difficulty here, but Mike was talking, just getting ready to tell us about Derek Barber of Richmond Heights, the player that really had jumped out to him recently.
Yeah, Barber, TJ mentioned it as well, just really has taken Richmond.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know what happened on the other end here, but we are back from our second technical difficulty. I think we have it fixed now. Mike just said that I'm definitely in preseason form and definitely need some more work before the tournament run here. So before we were cut off a second time, Mike was kind of going in on his player that has been standing out to him. TJ had mentioned his guy prior to this, but Mike was talking about Derek Barber of Richmond, unbeaten Richmond Heights.
Yeah, and that's been most impressive about Barber's season is that his team is winning, and he's playing a huge role in their victories. Kind of like an old school point guard that a lot of guys who've been watching high school basketball for years upon years are probably going to enjoy his game. And Richmond Heights is having a ton of team success. They're beating plenty of the top teams around Northeast Ohio, and also picked up a big win at Flying to the Hoop over the league leaders in the GMC, which is the top public school league in Southwest Ohio. So, yeah, a lot to like about Richmond Heights and Barber this season.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many players we could mention that are having standout seasons. Just right off the top of my head, you've got several guys that are in that running for Mr. Basketball right now. But we're just talking about guys that stand out. Colin White, certainly at Ottawa Glandorf, has just been an absolute killer. He broke the OG scoring record last week with 44 points and a 30-point beat down at St. Mary's. It'll be interesting to see if he can will that team back to Dayton. But we've just mentioned a few guys, and as the weeks go on, we'll be mentioning more and more guys on this show. What about, is there anybody that jumps out to you of teams that maybe aren't quite living up to like preseason expectations at this point, TJ?
I would say the first team that comes to mind would be a Lakota East, a team that many expected to be in the top 10 of Division One, and they hit a rough stretch to start the season. But I believe Coach Atkins down there can get things rolling. They have a really good sophomore guard in Trey Perry, some seniors and Julian Mitchell. They have a chance. I mean, they're usually year in, year out one of the toughest teams in the Cincinnati area, and I think it's just a matter of time before they get it going.
How about you, Mike?
Their record is not too bad, but I think Menor has kind of failed to reach preseason expectations so far. Maybe that's because the preseason expectations were so high. But they're sitting at 11-3. Got blown out by St. Ignatius at the Cleveland play-by-play. They picked up 4 straight wins since that. They gave up 72 points to Division IV Cornerstone Christian, but Menor has a lot of talent with the Iapolo brothers, Matt Bedell, and another couple role pieces who can certainly put the ball in the bucket. But if Menor can start getting stops, I still think this is a team talented enough to win a district in Northeast Ohio's Division One. That's going to be really, really balanced and deep, in my opinion.
Yeah, those are definitely two teams that are not used to not being at the top of the mountain per se of those, top 10 to 15 teams year in and year out in Division One. Let's take a look at. I wanted to run through these teams and see which of these teams do you think will remain unbeaten, and which of these teams you think schedule's probably too tough down the stretch. We'll start with the only Division One team that is unbeaten right now is Lakewood St. Ed's, and I'll just give you the schedule. So they've got Cleveland Benedictine, and then a back-to-back road games at St. V and St. Ignatius. And then they play Solon, John Hay, at Brecksville, and then home against Richmond Heights. I don't think that they come out of this unbeaten. What do you guys think?
I would have to agree with you. I think that stretch of Ignatius and St. V is, I think that my gut tells me they split. They split those two games. I think it would be very impressive if you can knock off both Cam and Drew Joyce in back-to-back games. I'm trying to look and see if either one of those games are on the road. Let's see.
Yeah, I think they both are.
Yeah, they both are. Yeah, January 27th and then February 3rd. Yeah, I would say that they do not come out of this last, 3, 6, 7 games unscathed. I think they drop 1 or 2.
And then
I agree.
Brecksville beat them last year, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, game both me and TJ were at.
Yeah, that was one of the better games I think I saw last year. That was when Brecksville guard Luke Skaljak kind of had his coming out party to Northeast Ohio. I think he scored 34 points. He was phenomenal. It was on the road. It was St. Ed's senior night. It was about as good as of an individual performance as I think I've seen in the last year or two.
It was the first time Ed's lost to a Northeast Ohio public school at home in almost a decade. The last one to do it was Glenville, I think in 2012. So, really impressive victory for Brecksville there. That rematch now at Brecksville should be a pretty interesting one as both teams get ready for the playoffs.
And you mentioned Luke, and that's another guy we could have mentioned as far as guys that are really playing well in the 2022-2023 season. Division 2, according to my stats, I have 3 undefeateds remaining. Reedy, Maysville, which is just outside of Zanesville, and then Holy Name, who has kind of done this a little bit under the radar. Maybe not for you guys, but for most of the state, I think they'd be surprised to know that Holy Name was undefeated. Reedy's interesting because they still have 3 league games, DeSales, Watterson, and Hartley. And those games in the CCL are always going to be the first team to 40 wins. So it's interesting. I don't know. DeSales, Watterson, Hartley, I mean, those are all rivalry games, and then they play also St. Charles. I should mention they also got Highland and Dayton Dunbar left on that schedule. So, again, I could be wrong, but I think somebody gets them before the tournament.
I would have to agree. I think that Highland game on a neutral floor, Highland, regardless of how much talent they have, is always a team that is just physical and just great defensively, especially in the half court. They're a team that we've kind of gotten accustomed to seeing down in, whether it's Columbus or Dayton in the Final Four. So it's not an easy win either. And then I believe they play, like you said, Dayton Dunbar, which is also going to be on a neutral floor at the Ottawa Glandorf Winter Classic on February 4th. So.
And then Maysville's game at Tri-Valley, I think, is going to be a really hard game for them to win. Looking at their schedule, they play Sheridan and John Glenn at home, but I think it's that Tri-Valley game on the road that could be the tough game for Maysville. And then Holy Name.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
think
Mike.
with Maysville, they got lucky because they only play West Muskingum once. And they beat them on the road. And West Muskingum is actually 8-1 in conference play. They're sitting at second in the MVL. And Maysville and West Muskingum were 2 teams I got to see over the summer. And both of them impressed me with how they were playing in June, and both have turned that into success in the season. So it's good to see Maysville do that, a team that doesn't have the historical success of some other MVL programs. Really, really good season for them right now. They got a big victory on the road against it was an unbeaten battle with Malvern. I think it was 10-0 versus 9-0. They got that win. So definitely want to shout them out as one of the more impressive teams from the East District, I think.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think one thing to keep notice, kind of keep tabs on with Holy Name is, unfortunately, due to the OHSAA's transfer policy, they will be without sophomore Max Ballin for the rest of the year. So Max is a sophomore who transferred over from Cuyahoga Heights. Really talented young player who has a lot of, I think, long-term upside. Could be a really good kid down the road. His dad played at Villanova. He was one of I believe, one of their top 3 to 4 leading scorers. So that makes things a little difficult for them.
Something to keep an eye on there for Holy Name moving forward. Division 3, you have Martins Ferry still undefeated, Liberty Benton still undefeated, and Ashland Crestview. Martins Ferry, I'm looking at their schedule. I believe it's tonight they play at Brook, which is a West Virginia school on the other side of the river of Steubenville. That could be a tough game tonight for Ferry, but obviously at Bel Air, huge rivalry game, will be difficult. They outscored Bel Air 38-6 in the second quarter of their first game. They're a very good team. They have a really good senior point guard that transferred in from Lindsley. And then they have a sophomore named Alex Reese. It's about 6'5", 6'6", really versatile kid for them. So they've got a little bit of talent right now at Martins Ferry. But they also have to play. They're going to obviously be in the OVAC tournament. So they're going to have to play 2 tough games for them in that. And then they'll probably be in the Buckeye 8 championship game playing the winner from the North Division, which is likely going to be Indian Creek. So Martins Ferry is an interesting team that a lot of games left to go for them. Liberty Benton has a game at home, but it's against Defiance. I think that's a game they lose on paper, but obviously that's why we play the game. And then Ashland Crestview is at Lucas tomorrow night, and I think that's going to be a tough game for them.
Yeah, I get to see Lucas at the Harvest Prep thing. They got a good senior guard, and they play tough defense. If they can beat you off the bounce, kick you out to shooters, they're a tough team to beat. So that'll be a good game. Two teams pretty close to each other as well, so I'm assuming pretty big rivalry out there.
TJ, you mentioned Cuyahoga Heights. Yes, they're still undefeated. And you were talking about, is that where the kid from Holy Name came from?
Yeah, he transferred over, I believe, in the summertime.
Was it Cuyahoga Heights or Cuyahoga Falls?
He was at Cuyahoga Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So yeah, I mean that's a pretty impressive job for them to still be unbeaten. Losing he was probably their most talented guy last year. That's a team that I personally have not seen yet, but a good chance that I potentially see them come postseason.
Well, they got 2 games. They got a home and a home with Lutheran West remaining, so probably not going to stay undefeated, but a great season thus far nonetheless. And the other 2 teams in Division 4 undefeated right now are Richmond Heights. I have the game at Eds circled as the one that either allows them to be undefeated or I think, ends that unbeaten season. Obviously, Coach Q wants that back-to-back state title more than that game at Eds.
And that's a game, I believe they played it around the same time a year ago. It was towards the end of the year after the tournament draw and the seedings came out. And I believe Richmond Heights won that game last year with senior Josiah Harris and company. I think Josiah might not even have played that game. So yeah, definitely, to me, I think games that come after that tournament draw, after that seeding, are a little up in the air. It's just a matter of, who has pride in that moment, who doesn't, who's kind of looking ahead, who's still trying to, close out the regular season strong.
And then the other remaining Division 4 undefeated team is a team I believe Mike Roth is familiar with, Leesburg Fairfield. They have a game at Fayetteville Perry, who is the leader in the other division in the Southern Hills Athletic Conference. They also have a game with North Adams. They won that game by 3 the first time around, and then closed the season at Lynchburg Clay. So I'll be interested to see if Fairfield can go undefeated here in the regular season.
Yeah, I saw them last year in, I believe it was the district title game, and they knocked off Lucasville Valley. They had only 1 or 2 seniors playing big minutes last year, so I'm not surprised that they're having as good of a season. That game against North Adams, they'll be going against Branson Copas, who's one of the top scorers in Southeast Ohio. So pretty interesting game right there. Fairfield definitely looking like one of the favorites in the Southeast District for Division 4, as they're having another great season.
So it's going to be interesting to follow these teams over the next couple of weeks. I couldn't agree with TJ anymore about after the tournament draw. It's just you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes teams, are so focused on that matchup in the tournament and kind of lose sight of those last couple of regular season games, unless, you're like, I love what the OVAC does with their tournament, games that matter, a trophy on the line, if you will. Some may call it a T-shirt game. And I think that really keeps kids, especially, let's just be honest, most of those teams, in a conference like that, aren't playing for a state title. So winning that OVAC championship is a big deal. And something like that in a tournament format to keep those coaches, teams, and communities locked in, I think is a pretty cool idea.
I'd like to, personally, I know it takes away from, non-conference games, but I'd like to see the idea of more conference tournaments. Even if it's not a tournament, I like what the Senate League does in Cleveland. How they take the top two teams, they play it at the, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And like you said, because after that tournament drawing, there's not a ton of meaningful games at that point. So I like that idea, like you said, continuing to give the kids, some incentive and some motivation to keep playing and winning games.
Yeah, I think I don't know how feasible it would be with the OCC, but you could match up divisions, have the number one seed in one division, play the number one in the different, and then go down to 3, 4, 5, 6. So then you just have to leave one open date at the end of the year to play a matching division champion or somebody who finished at the same record as that. So yeah, would definitely be interesting. It's always unique seeing how conferences from other parts of the states operate and do things.
I think it's funny, because one thing I do on my website is I chart the entire OHSAA tournament from sectional semis all the way down to the state championship game in each division, and it's almost like the entire state is not on one accord when it comes to when the tournament starts. You have teams who start the sectional tournament while other teams still have 2 to 3 regular season games left. It's mind blowing to me that we can't provide a more universal tournament. I would like to see the drawing come after the conclusion of the regular season. I don't understand why we do that with a week or 2 left to go. So just some things I would love to see all the district boards kind of come together and the regional boards just kind of come and get on the same page as far as that stuff is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are some topics that I think we should dive deeper into in the coming weeks as we get closer to tournament. I really like conversations like that. And there's been times where I'm eating my Valentine's Day dinner and teams are already checking out of the sectional tournament down in Southeast Ohio. It's crazy, and some of these teams are obviously, if you're playing at the Final Four, you're playing in mid to late March, and some of these teams have been out for 5 or 6 weeks. It's crazy.
I'm looking at a team schedule right now, and there is an event in Northeast Ohio on February 20th.
Yep.
A showcase event with, I believe it's 4 games. So by the 20th of February, you have teams like you said who are going to be in the district semis.
There'll be some teams getting the batting gloves and the catcher's mitts out by then.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna close the show with just a couple of different games that I want to play here. The first one is buy or sell. All right, so the computers, and when I say computers, guys, I'm referring to Martin's RPI, and we can get into that at another point. Just know that I love what the guy's doing. It's going to get better and better. He busts his rear end. He works extremely hard. Adding the girls' side of things this year, guy's got to be a complete animal to do that.
If he's doing that by himself,
yeah,
I tip my cap, because that is phenomenal. Well, regardless if you like the system, love the system, agree with it, disagree with it, it's still to me a phenomenal source in terms of record and kind of keeping track of things. So I think he does a phenomenal job from that standpoint, but the system definitely makes for a good conversation, depending on a lot of the rankings that I've seen over the last few weeks.
So I'm looking at Division 1, and 4 of the top 7 teams are Brecksville, Stowe, Nordonia, and Avon Lake in Division 1. Is there any team in that group of 4 that you are buying?
I would buy Brecksville. And I like Stowe. Stowe is,
Okay, I was going to take Stowe since you took Brecksville. I was going to take
I
Stowe.
believe Stowe only has 2 losses this year to Brecksville and Nordonia. They got big wins over Massillon Jackson, St. V, Walsh Jesuit, and Uniontown Green. So I think Coach Close, who it feels like he's been at Stowe longer than I've been alive, has done a phenomenal job. He's got a bunch of really good seniors over there. You got Timberlake, Costello, Baskerville. They're a fun group. I thought last year they were a team that we kind of looked at as sneaky good, and I think this year they're a team that's just flat out good.
Mike, are you agreeing in the buy there with Brecksville and Stowe?
Yeah, Stowe was going to be my number 1. So when TJ took Brecksville first, I was like, all right, don't have to switch off of that.
All right, so in Division 2, this would be an interesting one. Are you buying Lutheran West as the top Division 2 team in Northeast Ohio?
Buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Coach Duke has done over there this season has been he's done an incredible job. It was a team that I heard a lot about this summer, playing in different leagues and shootouts and going to different team camps. I heard that they had a lot of young talent kind of coming through the pipeline. And to do what they've done so far this year without their senior big man, Boubacar Dajigo, who tore his ACL in June, I think if he's playing, they might not only be the top Division II team in Northeast Ohio, I think they have a legit chance to be the favorite in Division II. And I think next year they're probably the hands-on favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the top 3 teams in D2 right now are Chaminade, Julian, Lutheran West, and Bishop Reedy. Lutheran West has a lot of impressive wins, and they've just been playing some really good basketball. Also, I want to note that I was 4-0 in my varsity career against Lutheran West.
Side note.
that is Fairview's main rival, by the way, for those who don't know.
I think what that junior guard Jason Levis has done over at Lutheran West. He was a kid who I had heard about. He was at Berea Mid-Park. I believe he averaged like 18, 20 points a game last year as a sophomore. I didn't get a chance to see him, but he was on my radar. He's a kid who made the move over to Lutheran West, and he has quickly become one of my favorite kids to watch in all of the state. He's this 6-foot, kind of skinny white kid. He walks in the gym. He doesn't pass the eye test, but he is an absolute gamer. Kid is a big-time rhythm shot maker, really good at creating space off the dribble. He's a very capable passer. He plays with an edge to him that I really like. So he's a kid. It's been a pleasant surprise, not only watching him, but the rest of the team with the Meyer twins. Derek Fairley has had some really impressive moments as well. So they're a team, absolutely. I could see making the trip to UD. It would be very interesting to see where they go, whether they go out west, whether they stay out here. But I would say Lutheran West, Akron Buchtel, Akron East, maybe outside looking in as far as the top 3 teams in Northeast Ohio in Division II.
Would you guys consider, well, obviously they're in Northeast Ohio. Youngstown Ursuline is in that kind of forgotten area of the state, but also another team in Division II that's currently 12-1, having a real nice season. I do want to give Roth his flowers. He mentioned Lutheran West last year when we were in our tournament picks and previews and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I hadn't heard anybody mention the name Lutheran West since Richard Semru, who played at Illinois, and that was a long time ago. So, great job over there. Those guys are really have improved significantly, and they're definitely in the conversation for top teams in the state in Division II. All right, Division III, buy or sell. I'm going to list a few teams here out of the Southeast/East. Are any of these teams capable of knocking Afrocentric and or Harvest Prep out of the tournament in Athens. Menford, Garraway, Martins Ferry, Malvern, and South Point. Are you buying any of those 5 teams to have the potential to end Afrocentric and or Harvest Prep's run to UD Arena?
I'm gonna say 2 of them have a shot to. I'm gonna say Martins Ferry, and I'm gonna say Minford. I was at the game Afrocentric versus Garraway last year, and it went about how you would expect. Garraway just didn't make enough shots from the outside, couldn't contain the athleticism of Dalen Swain. But they put together a good fight, and they returned a majority of their team, so they're another team that I could see doing it. But I think Minford, you have the shot making of Miles Montgomery, and I just think they don't turn the ball over that much. They've had some impressive wins this season. They're a team that I really like. They were just outside my top 10 preseason in Division III. And then Martins Ferry, they're a team, if their scoring is legit, that might be a way that you could upset an Afrocentric or Harvest Prep trying to outscore them instead of trying to take the air out of the ball.
Yeah,
I would personally, it'd be a hard sell for me. I still believe that the Afrocentric is probably the odds-on favorite to come out of that region. I think the addition of Cortez Freeman from Canal Winchester was a huge pickup for Coach Bass and company. I think he gives them, an added scoring punch. He's a kid who fits, I think, right into the mold of what they like to do defensively and how they want to play that up-tempo brand of basketball. I think it gives them a legit second option that they may or may not have had a year ago.
Yeah, I saw Afrocentric Saturday night against Pick Central, and one thing that I have made the mistake of doing before is when you see a D3 or D4 team play really, really well against a powerhouse D1 team, a lot of times you just kind of write them into, oh, well, they're going to smash this team, and this team. But when you watch them play against a Pick Central, they're going to be extremely motivated. Swain looks across the court and sees his AAU teammate, kid he's known for a long time. The crowd was electric in the gym that night. That's a big game for the City League teams to come over to a Division I reigning state champ in the OCC. So I don't get completely fooled by that anymore. I do think a team like Garraway, I saw them play against Lindsley a couple weeks ago, who is super talented, coached by a former Division I head coach. And those 2 Roden twins for Garraway are extremely tough. 6'3", 6'4"-ish, very versatile.
They play football as well.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that they're going to beat Afrocentric and or Harvest Prep, but I do think the way they play and as fundamental as they are and with the size and length that they have, I think that they could give them trouble. But I'm out. I'm selling.
Do you know if Garraway and Martins Ferry will have to play in the district finals, or could both of them win a district and make it down to OU?
I think they would have to play.
Okay.
I know Division IV in the East District this year is getting 2 teams, which they should.
Okay.
I don't need to see 2 Central Ohio Division IV teams anymore. All right, last one on the buy or sell. Babe Kwasniak. Yeah, babe, you had to wait 45 minutes to hear your name in this show. Babe Kwasniak in his Cornerstone Christian squad is the biggest threat to Richmond Heights repeating.
Bye. I think this group that I haven't seen yet, and I'm looking forward to catching them hopefully early on in the postseason, maybe in the districts. But when you have Turtle Kwasniak, I think what he just did to Minner the other night, I was kind of following along on Twitter. The kid had 28 points at halftime, finished with 49. They have another really talented sophomore over there as well. So Babe, when I talked to him on the phone, he absolutely loves this group. He thinks they have a legit chance. And I'll be very curious to see how it plays out. But I would say they are the one team in Division IV, gun to my head, that I think has a chance. And I think it will probably be, if they match up, will be Richmond Heights' closest game of the Division IV postseason.
I watched that Menor Cornerstone game on shout out Talkback Sports. They do a fantastic job. That I needed to get a water after watching the first half of that game. I mean, it was played at an absolutely just frantic pace. Kwasniak, Turtle Kwasniak, that is. I mean, his release is so quick, and it is, legit 30 feet. No memory of last shot either. And I know Babe, wants him to play like that. But I'm with you, TJ. I think a lot of people thought the three best teams in Division IV last year were Dalton, Cornerstone, and Richmond Heights.
Oh, I think that Tri-Village and Antwerp were better. I think they were the second and third best teams last year. I'm gonna show some respect. I mean, I can't believe Stubbs didn't go for this. Between Russia or Jackson Center, I'm gonna take my odds with them in a slowed down game than my odds with Cornerstone Christian in an up and down game that more suits what Richmond Heights wants to do. I think they're all losing battles, but I would take those odds slightly over Cornerstone Christian. But yeah, we'll see. That's why they play the games.
Definitely a fair assessment, especially in a frantic pace game with a guy like Derek Barber that makes a lot of great decisions with the ball. All right, so we'll finish out the show with this. I'm going to call this On the Spot.
Okay.
All right. So in Division I, I'm going to give you these five. Hey, look here. I'm going to give you these five teams: Centerville, St. Ed's, St. V, Pick Central, St. Ignatius. Is the state champion coming from one of those members of that quintet?
Yes.
I agree. I think over 50% that one of those five won it.
Okay. I'm in agreement. Division II. Bishop Reedy, Taft, Dayton, CJ. Is the state champ coming from one of those three teams?
I would also say yes.
I'm going to sell because Taft and CJ have to play each other. So at max, you can have 2 out of the final 4 teams. So I'll take my odds with 2 and potentially 3, depending on what happens with Bishop Reedy.
I like it. So Roth, I'm going to jot Roth down here for selling that one. All right, Division III, Lutheran East or the Field?
I will go with Lutheran East.
I will as well. But me and TJ did kind of argue about this like a week or so ago over how close it would be. And I was on the closer side of that argument.
Closer to the Field, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's an old saying, if you get a team in the Field, take the Field. But I'm probably buying that one with you. Although I do think Division III has a lot of good teams. All right.
I think similar to last year, I think Division III is going to be probably the most competitive Final Four that we'll get. I love the idea of of a Lutheran East and a Iowa Glandorf matchup. I think that would be a lot of fun. Or a Lutheran East Emmanuel Christian rematch. That was a pretty entertaining game for about 3 to 3.5 quarters over at St. V back in early December. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities in Division III. But going into it, I think this tournament just in general is going to be a lot of fun. Like I tweeted this out the other day, I have not seen this much parity across the board, especially in Division I, since my time covering the entire state of Ohio.
Yeah, I agree. Last one. We got about a minute left. Richmond Heights in Division IV for the field.
I think this is very, very clearly Richmond Heights. A year ago, they didn't have a single game that was decided by less than 20 points in the postseason tournament. And I think there's a slightly good chance that they could do something similar again this year. I think this is the best Richmond Heights team that I've seen in the last 7 or 8 years.
I think a better question will be, will any game be within 15 points? And I think that's a nice toss-up. That's before we wrap up. I think we'll see. We'll see if anybody can push it.
All right, fellas, for TJ Peatross and Mike Roth, I am Kurt Stubbs, and this was The Drive to Dayton. Hope you guys come back for episode number 2